This is your World War III Day X update reporting from the cricket-infested homestead. I've had to endure these loud, obnoxious creatures for the last couple weeks, so I think it's only fair we suffer together for 20 minutes or so. Now, I got to make this quick because I got a lot of work to do on the greenhouse, on the homestead in general. The days are getting shorter. Harvest season is coming. Winter is right around the corner, and we got to seize upon these longer days while we still have them. So no speculation or conjecture today. We're going to let the facts speak for themselves, and they will corroborate everything I said in my most recent video. And my battery is running out, so let's just start flapping these gums. Ukraine has cut their secure phone line with Moscow that was established in 1998. Now, why did they do this? Why did they just nuke another very important de-escalation hotline? Well, could it have something to do with the fact that the front line on the Donbass is totally collapsing? It is complete chaos right now, and Ukraine is panicking, according to even the most hardline. What do they call? I've been called a vatnik before. What's the Ukrainian version of a vatnik? It's like, somebody who succumbs to Western propaganda. Even according to them, the front lines are collapsing. So now they're trying to play that card and use that as an appeal to get more support, and it seems to be working. Joseph Borrell, the vice president of the European Union, is calling for lifting restrictions on Ukraine's use of donated weapons to Russia. I love how they use those philanthropic terms in order to make it a little bit lighter and make it seem like some sort of charity, right? Starting nuclear war in Armageddon is the charitable thing to do this day and age. Anyways, the Russians are saying, if you do that, we're going to respond immediately. That's what they're claiming. Usually with their red lines, they use more ambiguous language. They're saying that the EU or the EU countries that allow this, like the Dutch, who've just allowed Ukraine to do anything they want with the F-16s they're going to be getting, that may, of course, be nuclear capable. I just got to cancel that phone call coming in here. Yeah, they're saying that they're going to respond directly and asymmetrically. Russia is also preparing to be bombed. So their emergency ministry is on a heightened state of alert for the next couple weeks. They've even reorganized or canceled some school ceremonies that are currently being restricted. So they're taking the threat very seriously. In fact, some Russian officials claim that they have the full-on plan that Ukraine is floating for an absolute assault against Moscow and St. Petersburg. Now, if you're somebody with half a brain, you know exactly what this means. This means that Russia is going to have to respond in an unconventional way. In fact, it's gotten so bad that the language used here by the first deputy permanent representative of Russia to the UN, Polyansky, has basically outright stated that they have evidence that Ukraine is planning a nuclear false flag attack. Okay, more on that in just a moment. I'm going to go into depth about all these. I'm just rattling off the bullet points, and we're going to cut to the chase. Ukraine is training to have is actually using their F-16s off of highways. So they're claiming that these F-16s are flying off highways, but I've been under the impression, and I've been told by military experts, that you can't actually do this because the debris gets sucked up into the engine and they're not going to last that long. Now, are they just saying that? Here's where it gets into speculation. I said I wasn't going to speculate, but let's just speculate. It's a stream of consciousness video. I'm not some AI robotnik, okay? I'm Nate from the Canadian Prepper. Take it or leave it. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here. Anyways, I think that maybe this is a cover story so that they can cover up the fact that maybe these F-16s are flying in low across the border from Romania and Poland, and they're just not ready to admit that NATO is that involved in this conflict just yet. Remember my whole hypothesis about NATO pilots inside NATO planes flying low over the border from NATO countries and then pretending to be Ukrainian. And then, of course, now the Dutch are permitting them to fire into Moscow and St. Petersburg. This is insane. The Russians are preparing for an absolute assault on Moscow. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. Belgorod was attacked today. Okay, we also have to take into account a few key facts. Biden, back in March, and I talked about this, I did a video on it last week, everybody's already forgotten about it, but remember, he had a secret plan approved to fight a nuclear war on 3 fronts. I repeat, There was a secret plan approved by Joe Biden to fight a nuclear war on 3 fronts. This plan was so classified, and this is highly reported by mainstream media, but nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to put 2 and 2 together. It was so classified that it was only in paper form. There's no digitized version of this. Now, you pair that with the fact that the Russians just said, hey, we've changed our nuclear doctrine. Not we're thinking about changing, but we're changing it. And you pair that with the fact that the nuclear radar fiasco of a couple months ago, the frequent targeting of Russia's nuclear triad, the U.S. Navy getting closer to Russia's borders under the guise of trying to make sure that there's stability within the Middle East, and everything else that's going on with the space-based nuclear accusations. The Russians are putting nukes in space. The Russians are saying the Americans are putting nukes in space. And now you have the de-escalation hotline between Russia and Ukraine suspended. This is not looking good. No matter how you slice it, everything would be there. All of the data would be there to point to some imminent escalation, some big event. The only debate at this point in time is that when Russia uses nuclear weapons, is it going to be all at once, or are they going to do it piecemeal? Are they going to do something demonstrative, or are they just going to say, screw it, we know that as soon as we fire one nuke, the Americans are going to fire all of theirs, and we're going to have no choice. We might as well just do a decapitation strike of our own. They're going to sink everything, possibly in the Middle East. Now, again, stream of conscious speculation. I know I'm not supposed to do that. Let's just get back to the facts. I can do it if I want to. It's my channel. If you don't like it, get the hell out, as I already stated. Global Hawk, unmanned aerial vehicle over Estonia, allegedly hit by electronic warfare and lost contact with the operator. Now, I'm assuming that this story, this is not how the story ended. The plane eventually made its way back, but the Russians are using electronic warfare over Estonian airspace. If you don't know, these reconnaissance planes are flying constant circles around Kaliningrad, constant circles around all of Russia's border. If you guys think this is just some sort of fantasyland game, this isn't. This is the real deal. That's why I'm out here and not back in the city. An American RQ-4B Global Hawk reconnaissance UAV was performing a harmless reconnaissance flight. Remember all those attacks deep inside Moscow? Is Moscow to believe that these are just harmless reconnaissance flights and they're not relaying that information to Ukrainians who now claim that they have their own homegrown systems that can target as deep as they want, up to 2,000 kilometers? I don't think so. Anyways, near the Russian border of the Estonian territory today, but during the operation, it signals that it had lost contact with the operator and began to move chaotically in the airspace. Those Global Hawks, man, they have it tough nowadays, don't they? Like I said, Russia is responding to Joseph Borrell. They will respond strongly and asymmetrically to the removal of restrictions on European weapon strikes, and they will feel it immediately, said the head of the State Duma Defense Committee, Andrei Kartapalov. Okay, so they're serious. They mean it. They're going to respond immediately. What that means when they say asymmetrically, I don't know. They're going to activate sleeper cells. Are they going to target some underwater transmission cables or pipelines? What do they mean by asymmetrically? The Russians are very clever when it comes to punishing their adversaries, so I guess we're going to have to see. They're also preparing to being bombed. Russian forces are reportedly preparing for possible missile strikes on Moscow and other cities amid claims that Ukraine plans to target strategic locations, including naval bases, defense factories, and key cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. They are putting school ceremonies, they're starting to restrict those for the first part of the year. Here's what the Russians are saying. I don't have much time left. I did not prepare by charging up my phone. Ukraine wants to mount an absolute assault on Moscow. The armed forces plan to hit the Russian capital, Sochi, which is off the Black Sea, and cities with important factories and missiles, according to Russian officials. The armed forces plan to use Storm Shadow missiles with a maximum range, and I believe that those can go all the way out to 500 kilometers, the variants that they have. And let's face it, they have drones that can go 2,000 kilometers in their own homegrown ballistic missiles, they claim. Possibly other missiles of their own production, they say. The goals are allegedly Putin's residence in Sochi, the fleet in Novorossiysk, air defense systems in Sevastopol, defense and powder factories headquarters located from the south of Russia to Moscow, and St. Petersburg itself. Now, the European Commission, with the exception of Slovakia and Hungary, who are pissed off that they're not going to be getting their oil come January 1st of 2025, have basically said, blank check, carte blanche, you can bomb wherever the hell in Russia you want. I mean, think about that. The U.S., of course, is not officially on board with this, but they're saying as long as you don't commit any humanitarian violations of the Geneva Convention, you just go hard, fam. That's what they're saying. It is interesting that the authorities in Moscow asked to hold school lines on September 1st inside schools and without the presence of a large number of people and parents. School children and rescuers in Moscow are transferred to an increased mode of service from August 26th to September 9th. In turn, the Telegraph writes that Ukraine urged Britain not to lose the momentum created by the operations by the armed forces in, of course, Kursk. And they're saying that the UK has already permitted the use of these storm shadows deep inside that territory. Now, the first deputy permanent representative of Russia to the UN has the following to say, and I've never heard them use this type of language. This is so explicit. What is left for the rapidly collapsing Kiev regime under these conditions? And then I cut out a chunk of this where they're basically outlining how the Donbass front line is collapsing. Only one thing: to involve NATO, led by the U.S., in a direct confrontation with the Russian Federation. Kiev, put simply, has no other plan B, besides the false flag. The easiest way to do this is to arrange a large-scale provocation. This is what he's saying, not me, like Bucha. Blame Russia for it. In this regard, we recently warned about the provocation being prepared by Kiev with the so-called dirty nuclear bomb. But this is a troublesome and difficult matter, and it is quite difficult to carry it out without their Western overlords. Therefore, there is another option: to obtain permission to strike deep into Russian territory with Western missiles. So far, Washington and most other capitals have refrained from doing this, fully understanding that this is fraught with a large-scale escalation that would go far beyond the borders of Ukraine, with all the consequences that follow from a conflict with a nuclear power. But will they continue to push the envelope? We've seen that red line after red line is overstepped with no recourse as of yet. No direct consequence for this persistent overstepping of boundaries. Now, Ukraine is alleging that their nuclear-capable F-16s are taking off from highway systems. I talked about this earlier. Is this the truth or is it not? The Finns are also training, and apparently they do this routinely, to take off from highways as well. And of course, you do this so you can have a distributed strategic plan so that if there ever was a major nuclear war, all your things aren't concentrated in one place, so you distribute it throughout the country. The Finnish Air Force will operate from the Hosio and Norvitai highway strips in the Bana 24 road base exercise next week. Readiness to operate out of a dispersed base network is part of the Finnish Air Force mobile battle concept. As I indicated, Belgorod was attacked today. 5 civilian casualties there, so the front line appears to be expanding once again in that direction. Another Russian cargo plane made it into Iran. In fact, this is a sanctioned plane, which is forbidden by the Americans. They sanctioned that airline for weapons transport long time ago. Dmitry Medvedev has a theory about why the Ukrainians want the Donbass. He claims that there's up to $14 trillion in natural resources within that region, and that Ukraine needs it to pay their debts, or NATO needs it so that Ukraine can pay all of their debts. And as of January 1st, 2025, the Druzhba oil pipeline from Russia through Ukraine will cease operations, cutting off oil supplies to Slovakia, I was going to say Czechoslovakia, but some people corrected me on that in the past. The Czech Republic, Hungary. I hear some people calling it Hungary, and they're going to stop the transit of Russian gas from January 1st as well. So all of that considered, any moment now, the shizzy could hit the fizzy. I'm going to use this last half an hour or so of daylight to get some stuff done around here. If you guys want to support the channel, if you want to get an official Canadian Preparedness t-shirt, go to CanadianPreparedness.com. But you know what? At this point in time, just buy preps instead. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out.